Hello, welcome to Limitless. I'm going to be shifting things up a little bit today. I've been doing classroom work previously, and now I'm going to start doing some interviews, learning from other people and how they're growing in their spiritual paths. And today I have Sheburra, who is actually a former teacher at Lead Elementary School. She was actually my son's math teacher. And it's funny how I met her actually was at a parent-teacher conference.
Yes.
And her classroom was decorated with sacred geometry and Nikola Tesla style patterns and UFOs, but they were subtly put up out of the normal vision range around the top of her classroom, kind of signaling there's something else different here. So I'll wait till everybody else left. And so I got to find out something about this lady. So we got into conversation. I found out some very interesting things about her. So I'm going to start this interview by asking you a little bit about yourself, how you grew up, and what made you put those pictures up in your room.
Okay, well, I grew up in Japan, in Kanagawa-ken, Japan, in a very segregated neighborhood. This is back in the 80s. Our neighbors were not very kind to multi-race families. And we were definitely not the one that they enjoyed having around. And they were very mean to me. I was very young. I was about 5, 6 years old. All the kids in the neighborhood would not play with me. So I learned from very early on to play by myself and just kind of kept to myself. I played with nature. I would go by the riverbank and play by the river. I would find stray dogs and cats and pet them and call them my friends. And I was a very happy child. Though at times I was like, how come they're so mean to us, mean to my family, my sister? But I learned to just kind of create my own joy and fun as a child. But one day, a visitor came into our neighborhood, and this was a little girl about my age. She was like a nephew or niece of somebody in the neighborhood. I didn't know who, but she was playing by herself, and she didn't know about all the segregation and all the nastiness that was going on. So she just kind of looked at me and smiled, and I was like, oh, she's smiling at me. And I smiled back, and I taught her how to play a game that I really enjoyed playing, and we started playing together. And that was the first time I tasted the power of sharing knowledge and skills and enjoyment with someone, and how that took away all the nasty hate and segregation and division and all the stuff that I was dealing with in that neighborhood. And ever since then, the entire neighborhood kind of changed. They kind of looked at me differently and kind of accepted me a little bit more. And I felt like that moment, as we shared and educated each other, one another, by sharing how to play games. She also taught me how to play a game too. It just kind of brought harmony into our neighborhood, into my life. And that's when I knew. I was like 5, 6 years old. I'm like, I want to become a teacher. I want to be in education. I want to be where people share knowledge and experiences and joy and come together and just have a good time. Who cares about if I look a little different than you and that kind of stuff. So education's been in my heart since that early on. And in terms of all the sacred geometry, that particular year I met you, Chris, I was very inspired to decorate my classroom with sacred geometry. I was teaching algebra and I was teaching geometry. I was bringing geometry into my curriculum. And I wanted the flower of life and different patterns of life and what creates our reality, all of that to be in my room, since I have to be there every day. So, I did it more for me than for my students. They didn't really recognize what that was until you came in and you pointed out like, hey, what's going on? It's like, oh, you understand what this is. So yeah, that's my story, my passion in education, and that particular year why I put those symbolism up in my classroom.
So bringing harmony
Yes.
to education.
Yes.
Okay. And what made you discover the sacred geometry? What made you want to put those pictures up? Because that's not normal. A lot of people can go into education, but to explore that kind of deeper aspect of themselves and have the courage to put it out there as well, especially 5 years ago.
Yes, yes. Well, back in 2016, I believe, I had this spiritual awakening experience. It just kind of happened out of the blue, and it just changed my life just like that. It's one of those overnight, everything changed for me. And the catalyst for that was my father. He passed away, but at the time we were having some conflict, and I came home very upset, and I was in extreme pain. And I didn't know why my father was being so difficult, and I just didn't know what to do. So I was crying, and I was in a lot of pain, and I heard a voice from within. This is the first time I've experienced something like that, a voice from within that said, well, if it hurts that much, change it.
So did it come from, it was in your mind, it was auditory? How did you hear the voice?
It was just from within. It is so hard to describe. It wasn't from outside. It was from within.
So from
but it wasn't my
heart?
voice. It could be from my heart. It was definitely related to my heart because my heart was really aching. It was in a severe pain. And it almost felt like there was a dagger that was just stuck there. And I'm like, I need to take this out. Kind of like if you get a splinter or something, you just know there's some kind of something that's annoying you. You have to get it out. You got to get it out. And that's how I was feeling, this pain. And it's like, well, if it hurts that much, change it. I was like, well, maybe I can take this pain out, like physically. But yet it wasn't physical. It was very beyond the physical. It was very metaphysical. And I just used my imagination to take this pain out of my heart. And immediately after I did that, the whole world began to shine. Like the table, the chair, the bookshelf that I was standing, like it just, everything had this glow, this beautiful glow.
So the shine was like a white?
It was more like a gold light to me, goldish light. And it was just kind of like, oh, what is this? The whole world is shining right now. And the pain that I was feeling was gone. It was absolutely gone. I was actually now crying, not out of pain, but now out of joy, just tears of joy. And I thought about my father, and immediately I forgave him. I was like, you know what? He's doing his best. And I've never taken that perspective, especially with the kind of conflict that we were facing at the time. And I just knew something shifted within me, something great, just a great shift within me. And that's when I start to take a very conscious step towards learning more about spirituality. What just happened to me? Why am I vibrating and resonating at a high frequency all of a sudden? And people noticed my joy and the bliss that I was experiencing. People thought I was pregnant because I had this glow. They're like, oh, you have a pregnant glow. Are you pregnant? And I'm like, no, I'm not pregnant at all. I'm high on life. Like, oh. And for a month, I didn't eat. I didn't really sleep. I was just so excited to be awake and just be alive. And I wanted to know more about this feeling. It's like, what is this? Is this an enlightenment, nirvana? Like, what is this? I start looking things up.
So where did you go? What did you do? Library or?
I went to the internet, actually. Okay. I went to the internet, and in the past, I knew spiritual leaders and gurus like Buddha or Jesus Christ. They're like, well, they're not here anymore. Well, what about physically? What about people like myself living right here, right now? Who else is experiencing this? Am I the only one? What is going on? And I found out I'm not the only one. People have these experiences, and near-death experience sometimes kind of catapults people to that type of awareness and consciousness sleep. So that's when I start finding more about spirituality, how to navigate it, the different types of exercise and mindfulness training that I could do to better get in touch with myself.
So was there any specific gurus or teachers or teachings you went to for that?
One in particular was Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
He was, I founded his book to be very fascinating. And there was a CD in my car. It was kind of a spiritual, very spiritual music, very calm music, meditation music, and it always skipped track 9 for whatever reason. It was damaged or something. So I've never heard what that song was, but very, very soon after, like soon after I picked up Eckhart Tolle and started reading about his spiritual journey, track 9 played that next day almost. And it played the whole song. And the song was called The Power of Now. The book that I was reading was called The Power of Now. So I just broke down in tears of joy again and was like, the synchronicity, how the universe was talking to me, was pointing me, saying that, yes, you're awakening, you're picking up the messages and the symbolism that's all around us all the time.
So you think about being in that moment now, is that ability to see those auras, to feel that joy comes from that moment of now?
That's definitely one of the ways. Yes, there are many different ways as one experience their growth in their spiritual path. I think sometimes it's the synchronicity. Sometimes it's the inner joy that you feel. I think there's many different things. But at the time,
for
me personally,
are you still seeing these auras and feeling this joy as before?
Definitely. I do have to be very mindful of being in a meditative state. I have to learn, and I'm continuing to learn. Continue to practice meditation, how to be calm and still, because that's when I feel it.
Okay, so what meditation, what is your technique in order to relax yourself at that point where you get back that state of joy and bliss?
For me, I'm very kinesthetic. So when I go for a run, and every step I do gratitude. I don't necessarily think it, but I feel. I think about my family, or I have an imagery in my mind of something, and I guide my feeling towards gratitude every step I take, and every path that I choose to take for the morning jog. I immerse myself in gratitude.
So do you think that using your heart instead of your mind helps you focus yourself that way better?
Definitely, most definitely. Yes.
So using the path of emotions to enter the spirit.
Yes, energy in motion. Yes.
Oh, very good, very good. Are there any other techniques you use, just in case somebody isn't a runner?
Let's see, any other technique? Well, just simple way of meditating, practicing on my breathing techniques. So when I get a chance to quiet my mind and my body and have a quiet space, I will try to do that. I'll have mantras.
Particular breathing that you use?
Not in particular. I try different things.
Okay.
And there's one that you taught me too, where you focus on your nostril, the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body through your nostrils. What is that one called? I do that sometimes.
Anapana. I think that's 2,500-year-old Buddha.
Anapana.
Gautama Buddha. Yeah.
And the Kundalini, I also think about my chakra cleansing and rotation of the chakra up the spine, Kundalini. I don't know if there's a specific name for that or a specific. I kind of do what works for me at that moment, at that given moment in time. So
there's an intuitive flow. Is what you're working with.
Yes.
So it helps you get connected to yourself.
Yes.
Awesome. Now you also have 2 boys. Is that right?
Yes. I have 2 boys, 2 twins.
Is there anything you do to help teach them to relax?
Yes, not turn on the TV right away or anything. Even when they're asking for it, we try to minimize our screen time and allow them to just kind of sit in a daze, especially when they get up from their nap, or even in the morning when they get up, they're still kind of not quite back in their body, if you will. They're just kind of out of it. And I just let them sit, let them gaze out the window, let them kind of do that. I don't interrupt them. I don't quickly rush them to go brush their teeth or turn on the TV, or I just let them kind of
like groggy morning.
Yeah, let them kind of sink in, and that's my little version of meditation for them. Also, when things get a little rowdy, because they're 3-year-old rambunctious twins, they're constantly competing with one another. Just quiet time. We just stop, turn on some relaxing meditation music, and then we just play quietly. So that's something that I do with my 3-year-olds.
So kinesthetic and
auditory. Yeah.
And you take away the modern stimulus.
Yes, the modern stimulus. Yes.
Go back to the basics.
Yes.
All right. So I know that you're very ambitious about education and working with your own children. I know you're looking to expand that to help other people.
Yes.
And so would you tell me a bit about this project you're working on?
Sure.
These mugs here represent
yes. AUM.
AUM, yes.
So I am in the midst of establishing the Academy of Universal Metaphysics.
Wow.
And it is an academy. It is a space where knowledge, life wisdom, and holistic practices come together to help empower our children, to empower our youth, so they believe in the infinite possibility, that they are self-aware, and that they are interconnected to everything that's within our universe, to help them navigate the knowns and the unknowns of our reality. So as my children grow, they're 3 now, soon to be in a couple years going into kindergarten, school age, as people will say. I'm excited to roll out our academy to a point where we can open classes for kindergartners, and then just onward, 1st grade, 2nd grade, all the way up to high school. It will be a K through 12 a school or academy. I like to use the word academy. We're not quite school, we're academy, where students will be not only educated in the academics, but also metaphysical discovery will be part of the curriculum. We would encourage that and give opportunities for such self-discovery.
So why is metaphysics important? Because most modern schooling today is more about one test scores, but also your basic English and math. So we're looking for those 2 things to develop a child. We've taken away a lot of the music and extracurricular activities, or making it funded by parents. So why do you see metaphysics, if we're not concentrating on just the basic stuff we used to have as far as music and athletics? Why is metaphysics a piece you want to bring into that?
Well, it's because if one is intrinsically in tune with themselves, with oneself, he or she can better discern what their heart resonates, their life purpose. They can easily navigate what they are meant to learn and heal and to do in this lifetime. So metaphysics is a vehicle that allows us to give opportunities for self-discovery. And if you know yourself really well, then you won't waste time navigating and doing things that may not fit your personality or your inspiration, or that may stump your natural creativity. You see, like music and just play. Recess is now like down to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We want kids to play. It's through play and interacting with each other, with themselves, problem solving, figuring things out. Those free, unconstructed time is when they really get to know who they are. And we just kind of let kids figure it out, let people kind of figure it out. Spirituality it is a very personal thing, by all means, but we just kind of don't really talk about it. Well, we're beginning to talk about it now, but it can be something that can be nurtured, encouraged, and why not? Why can't an academy encourage that?
So, how would you encourage, and say, an average child, average family that has not had these spiritual awakening moments? How would you encourage that, or bring that into a family's lifestyle?
Okay, I think through modeling some of the practices, we would do affirmations. We would learn how to be quiet with our minds. We will learn to use visualization before we step into any performance, for example. These techniques will show the parents and people who are participating on the value of taking that moment to use the metaphysics, to think and be aware of what's beyond the physical, the thought, the vibration, that energy field. If we are sensitive to those things, then we can perform better.
I think that's the thing I'm looking for, is how do you make somebody sensitive to that? So if you're going to educate a child, naturally they kind of fit in this metaphysical thing better than an adult does. And so you're going to train a child to feel, to sense something that's beyond, keep them grounded through that process. What do you see as the most effective ways to do that?
I think questions, the type of question you may ask, reflective questions. How are you feeling about that decision? For example, if it was a decision-based, or the child may be very excited or very emotional about certain things. Taking the time to ask about that feeling, how, and some of the implication or consequences to maybe the feeling that is connected to the action that may be that may be the case. And also validating those feelings, and even modeling or giving examples of how that feeling can manifest or result in the type of outcome that they want, for example.
So you're looking towards an emotional education.
Emotional education.
I think that's something our kids need a lot. We hear a lot of these stories about shootings happening in schools and kids flipping out, getting in fights. This is a way to help children overcome their emotional bad habits, we'll say. This school allows that aspect, which is untaught in our society right now, to the common person. Because we know in pro athletes and high-performing people, they are taught to manage emotions. So you're looking to bring that into, let's say, the common understanding here.
That's right. Common practice.
Starting as a young age. And a lot of our, we'll say, metaphysical teachers have done that from a young age. A lot of young monks on the eastern side of the world start at a young age learning things like breath techniques, emotional control, and physical discipline. So you're looking to bring that kind of teaching into the West then?
That's right.
Oh, wow.
That's right. And really to encourage empathy. How do you think the other person may feel? Or encouraging the child to put themselves in other people's shoes, or pose a question that may be opposing to what they may be advocating for, just so you can allow them to kind of practice whether to become a better self-advocate or explain their feelings, or maybe there's room for growth. Maybe they may start contemplating on other points of view or learn how to agree to disagree. Some of these skills that are lacking in even among adults these days.
So if we're training the children, is there a way to also help the adults then?
Of course.
Bring it into the family?
Of course.
So this is a big movement, actually.
This is a very big movement.
And in Las Vegas, of all places, right?
Yes.
Sin City.
That's right.
So bringing peace into the sin to allow people to grow.
Yes, it's not just the parties. It's not just the games and the fun, and those are good too. But can't we stay calm in the midst of chaos?
The balance within.
Yes.
So you got one thing over there downtown, and now we got something out towards. You're looking at whereabouts? You said up near Mount Charleston, campus.
Yes, there's a huge development with community and growth that's happening on the northwest corner of Las Vegas Valley, and there's not a lot of schools up there yet. And AUM, Academy of Universal Metaphysics, will love to build out their future campus out there, beautiful campus out there that will help facilitate the academic application and the metaphysical discoveries and the community collaboration. That's our third pillar. That's our third essential core value, is the community collaboration. We need to learn how to collaborate with the community to grow. It's not just me or you. We're not an island. As we progress as humanity, we need to take advantage of all the resources and help one another. So community collaboration is going to be very, very huge. And the community service projects, that will be the vehicle for inquiry-based education, performance-based education, and purpose-driven education that we are going to be bringing to the table.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this education is being founded upon your personal metaphysical journey. So what types of visualizations, what types of metaphysical tools are you using in order to create this reality for yourself?
I look at the patterns and significant moments in my life that is calling me to create something for humanity. And so far, a lot of my most important experiences, the one that I've shared with you earlier with my spiritual awakening, that's a huge one, all points in the direction of how can I give back to the community with what I have learned and what have touched my heart. And it's been in the area of education for me. And I won the Heart of Education Award back in 2016.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Wow. Around the same time as I was spiritually becoming more awake and started my journey. And it's just all kind of happened around the same time. Wow, I'm getting recognized as a very influential educator in the community. And I'm beginning to see the world in a more light of possibility instead of lack. I start to see the world in abundance, infinite possibility. Literally, I use that phrase because it's true. There's so many ways to help one another and elevate ourselves. And I just see that Academy can be a very important hub of the community to share that harmony, to echo that, to become an example for other institutions or other sectors within our society to kind of, we may be able to try that technique. Visualization is huge. A lot of professionals use visualization.
So how specifically do you visualize? Because this is a huge project that's never been attempted before. And to grow this out of very little background on this, what are you using as far as visualization tool for one and other tools? How are you growing this out of the metaphysical ether into the physical foundations to build a school?
Well, I get these downloads, these imageries, these feeling of excitement when I pursue something. So at first I was thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to homeschool my kids. So, and that felt good. That idea, it's like, I'm a very good educator. I should be able to educate my children, and I'll do a homeschooling program, and it'll be good. And that felt good for a while, and all of a sudden the excitement started to kind of fade, or I'm like, am I still supposed to be doing this? I'm listening to my intrinsic guidance.
So it's the follow your bliss type of.
Yes, following my bliss. And then somebody said something, a neighbor of mine says, it'd be so nice to send my kid to a school like this or like that. And I'm listening. I'm like, you know what? I believe in those values. Yes, we need more of that in our community. Wait a minute. I'm definitely going to highlight that in my homeschooling. And then homeschooling became, wait a minute, maybe it's not just for my kids, it's for the kids in the community. And then all of a sudden that started to get really exciting. And I started talking to other educators and passionate people in the community about bringing more harmony into our world, and start talking to different innovators and change makers and people who are interested in raising human consciousness like yourself. I reached out to these people, and they all seem to be very excited about this idea that we have a hub, a community hub, an academy that we can all share and grow as a community. And one idea, one conversation will lead to another, and it just became this big vision very quickly. And so many things pointed. And when you are in your alignment, when you're in your flow, things just kind of happens easily. It's just you meet the right people, you hear the right information, and things that seem like, oh, that will be difficult, actually isn't that quite difficult. It just kind of happens. So following the flow.
How does that flow feel to you? Is there a feeling you have, or is it just noticing what's going on in the outside world? How do you define the flow?
The flow is when, if you said it, the following your bliss. There's a sense of bliss when that information comes, or the opportunity, or that perspective, or intrinsically you get excited about something. And I'm just following that. I'm just following that. Definitely the feeling is there. It's not just information. It's not just meeting someone. It's that feeling of connectedness.
So it's still coming from the heart for you.
Definitely a heart feel. Yes. A lot of heart. So
if you feel like you drop out of that flow, like you took a step out of the stream or something happened, the kids threw a wobbler or something, how do you get back into that flow?
You go back in your heart space. I meditate. Sometimes I step back and engage in other things. And then within a matter of time, something will propel back me to the path.
What is that bump?
That bump could be, again, an information, a slogan that I heard from a song lyric, or a scene that I see on a TV, or something that my husband's talking about, like blah, 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 so-and-so said this. And then it'd be like, there's just like this internal, like a nudge, and a lot of times people would just brush that away. But I learned to listen to it. Okay, what does that mean? How am I feeling about that? These questions that we're going to teach our kids how to question.
So you're looking, it's not only internal, it's also an external feedback. So you're looking actually at the world, which is itself is metaphysical, it's built upon something or like 100 years ago, we said E equals mc squared. And E, we're still kind of, what is E? We look at light as being both a physical piece of matter and a wave. So what does that mean? Well, we're in this place where things like visualization can take something that's not real and make it real. That's what pro athletes use. I used going through pilot training in the Air Force. They taught us how to use our visualization in order to make things happen in the real world. We call it chair flying, sitting down and pretending to fly. So this internal mechanism also works externally as a feedback system. So you're looking for things on the outside world to cue you back in. And that notice, I know it takes practice. How have you cultivated that notice and that moment of quietness to get yourself steered back into the flow?
Sometimes I test myself. Sometimes I'll get that message or the symbol, and I'm like, is this a message? Is this an internal guidance? Nah, maybe not. But then very quickly, within a day or two, at the longest, I will get reminded again on no, you need to pursue that, or you ought to try that. So it's like you are in this communication. You're having this communication with this universe. I learned to communicate with the universe. When somebody tried to teach me that in the very beginning, a few years ago, I wasn't quite sure what this particular person was talking about. What do you mean communicate with the universe? Like, am I going to hear like a voice from outside, or that voice from within that I heard that time with my father? I don't always get that clairvoyance. Audience, excuse me. Clairvoyance will be the visual. Yeah. Yes. Sometimes, very rarely, I get those. But so in the beginning, I wasn't sure on how do we communicate with the universe. And I think it's different for everybody. And I learned what it was for me. And it started off with certain sequence of numbers. And then it'll be certain patterns. Like, for example, 4 birds will fly. And I will notice, 4 birds just flew by. And another 4 will fly by. So it's like you do a double take, if you will. So that's kind of like, in the same formation. It's like it's as if it's very intentional that the universe is doing that. It's like, hey, here's 4 birds flying in this interesting sequence, and then we're gonna do it again. So you're paying attention this time, So
it's like that scene in The Matrix. Remember that when the cat walks by?
Yes.
The cat walks by again.
Yes.
And they cued off that right there.
Right
so
there.
That the universe has a language it speaks to the person.
That's right.
Learning that language is personal.
That's very personal. And it changes. What was, the things that I looked for and recognized 2 years ago is a little different now. It evolves. You're constantly changing and evolving, and it's like the onion, right? The peeling of the different layers. And so a lot of the times, if I'm doubting my decision or the direction I'm headed, I will ask myself, like, okay, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And I go inward and start feeling my feeling, if you will. How's my feelings? And then something would happen, and it'll give me that validation or confirmation that my thought process, my emotion is accurate or not. And if it's not, it's like, okay, maybe there's something else. It's not, I don't always see that as a no, but it's something to be cautious, because there's so many different paths that you can take. So I always leave it open as I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's shifting gears a little bit here, but looking, so we talked about your personal journey. How does it affect family and friends as you got on this? Have new relationships been brought in? Have old relationships collapsed? There's some hurtful things happen to you? Let's start with that, because I know when people go through these spiritual experiences for the first time, they feel like they can't tell anybody. So how did you deal with this first opening, and who did you tell?
Yes, when I was experiencing the spiritual awakening, initially, I started to talk to people, and very quickly found out.
How did you choose which people you talked to?
Well, at first, I let the immediate family know, the people that I was close to, my friends, like my girlfriends. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this great. And, I was on the phone, I was talking to my sister and childhood friends that I still keep in touch with. It's like, oh my gosh, this thing happened, and I heard this voice, and it was like this, and everything is great, and everything is shining. And people are like, okay, did you go out drinking or something? And very quickly, I felt their wavelength and my wavelength is not matching. So it's like, what? So it's like, oh. So very quickly, I backed off and I start doing my own research. It's like, I need to find somebody who understands what I'm going through. And that's really what's got me started, my research. And you learn how to integrate as you get more mature, and that energy gets more, I guess, better calibrated, if you will, within you and your surroundings. You learn how to kind of adjust. Oh, with this person, I may not share about the shining of the bookshelf, but I can talk about compassion. With this person, I may not so talk about compassion, but I could talk about synchronicities and how that is fun. That is a fun, universal, magical way of discovering within your day. So you learn to you just like anything, at Thanksgiving dinner, everybody gets together. You know who to talk politics with, or who
stay away from politics.
Stay away from politics, or who to talk certain music, or who to talk about TV show. Like, people kind of have like, okay, with this person, I can talk about that and learn something from, or with this person, I'm going to challenge that person and talk about that, or whatever. But it's kind of like that with spirituality too. As you go on your spiritual journey, you just kind of learn how to share. And I like to share. Being an educator, I'm always trying to, how can I educate and help and share? In turn, I learn. So I find a lot of joy in that. And so what can I do to help elevate the other person as they elevate me as I'm learning? So it goes both ways. So my husband saw the changes right away, like, oh, how come she's always so happy these days? This is nice, and I would share little stories or an example, and talk to him about certain things, or maybe kind of challenge him about certain things, on changing some of his perspective on some of the things that I feel like he's so rigid in.
And he's open to that.
Yeah, wow. I think at first, because he sees how happy I am. He sees the clarity and productiveness that comes with it. Like, I'm going to make you dinner. He's like, okay. He's like, okay, I like
way to his heart through food.
Yeah. Or let's do this. Or coming up with different creative date night ideas. Like, okay, well, I'm liking this. What are you up to? And you draw people in because you are emanating such positivity. They're, well, what's that? What's going on? And you share a little bit, and okay. And then they, very quickly, my husband will start sharing stories, things that happen at work or in the neighborhood or whatever. And I hear his wisdom. So, so I went and told the neighbors this and this and that. I'm like, oh, you did? And that wisdom comes from compassion, about togetherness. And that's what I'm listening for, the harmony, even within an argument.
So you harmony. Two are growing together, yes. Which is an amazing thing to happen in a marriage.
Yes.
So somehow you guys got together and now are growing together with the two boys.
Yes, with two twins. Beautiful boys. Yes, and we visualize them. We actually had a really hard time having kids. So we tapped into metaphysics, and we did a lot of visualization and lots of prayers and good energy. And every step we took in our fertility journey, we definitely invited the universe, like, we're going to do this together. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. And we got very, very fortunate, and our two boys are such a blessing to us and so many people. So
you've been using visualization for a while.
Yes.
As far as education is concerned, going back to AUM, what do you see as the first changes that you can make in a school? This is going to be a step-by-step process. I assume you're not just going to jump in and have this huge metaphysical curriculum. What would you first introduce to your children? Not your children specifically, but the children in the school.
I think the first thing that'll be very, very obvious will be that we're not pushing down standards after standards after standards. We're going to educate our kids holistically.
So what is holistic for education?
That is mind, body, heart, and spirit. It's a very well-rounded way of delivering a curriculum. Very intentional, very intentional. We pick, instead of so many learning objectives and so many standards, we pick few that are essential. And we take time, we give time, we learn it in different angles. We ask questions and provide experiences where we challenge their mind. And how does that internalize to their body? We point those things out, otherwise it's going to be a miss. And then we're constantly asking about, well, how do you feel about it? How can you apply the skill that you just learned to your daily endeavors? And kindergartens can answer that questions for you, no problem. Much better than adults sometimes, and spiritually, how do you feel about that? Or spirituality, the emotional education and the spiritual education has a lot of overlap. But it's the some people call it the virtues. What did you learn? What's the lesson? What's the healing? What's the conclusion that you can draw from that particular application of knowledge and skills? And if the child's answer is, oh, it helped me forgive someone, or it helped me share better with another person, that's when you know you're getting to the spirit.
So you're finding the aha. So education, actually the root of education is educo, which in Latin means to draw from within.
Draw from within.
You're taking this mind, body, and emotional connection and looking for feedback. So not only did you apply what we taught, but what did you get back out of it? Because a lot of children don't see the reason for learning about Civil War history. It's just memorizing a bunch of things. Now, if you have a feedback saying why, then there's much more of a desire to learn.
That's right.
And having the aha in the learning process helps ground everything.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's so important to nurture that from such early stages, not when you're outgrown in the work field, but right now. Right now for my children, they're 3. Okay, what does spiritual education, metaphysical discovery look like as a 3-year-old? It's going to look a little different than kindergartners or 6th graders or a senior in high school. But that's where the experts comes in, the gurus, the spiritual teachers, people who have navigated and have wisdom in this area of nurturing, how to disseminate these information and get that feedback.
So that's going to be your teachers.
Those are our teachers.
So they're going to be academic teachers that fulfill our required training.
That's right.
But also be able to work on this guru level?
Yes, the metaphysics level. Yes.
Wow, you're looking for quite an interesting base of teachers.
Yes, we are. We will be. This is where my heart really sings, is that teacher training, because teachers themselves, especially these days, have a lot of their creativity has been stopped. Their light, a lot of their passion for teaching has been kind of taken away, if you will, by so much work, the workload, the standards after standards after standards that they have to teach, the gap that they're experiencing, the unresponsiveness of the students, whether they're so distracted by their technology or distracted by social media or whatever it may be, maybe the disconnect that's happening at home, whatever it may be, the teachers are overwhelmed and burned out, a lot of them, by these challenges. And they themselves have not tapped into their flow, their creativity, their reason why they enter the field of teaching. So yes, at our academy, our teachers get to kind of relearn who they are as an educator all over again, because they too are going to be immersed in holistic education of mind, body, heart, and spirit. So they're going to recognize that themselves, and we're going to fill their cup so full that they're going to spill over onto our students, our children.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'd love to send my children to AUM.
AUM, yes.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up now. I'm just going to ask a couple little questions, short answers here.
Sure.
What do you define as happiness?
What do I define as happiness? When your heart is filled with bliss, when your mind is clear, when you realize that the world around you is in sync, is in alignment with your soul existence.
Wow. How do you find peace in a mix of turmoil of family and bills and all this modern life we live in? How do you ground yourself? How do you find peace?
Going within. Just like happiness, peace is your responsibility. And even in the midst of chaos, we can still find peace within. No one can take that away from you. And that faith and that connection comes from knowing who you are and how you are connected to everything. And that is what's going to ground that individual or individuals.
Wow. Last one. Who you are. Did that change through your spiritual awakening, that moment when you started seeing everything with the auras, the golden auras around everything? How was it before and then after?
Before, I was in a lack mindset. Not enough time, not enough that. Victim mentality. The words, the attitude towards life was very lack-based and very victimized ways of thinking about myself and the world. It's always somebody else's fault. It's never enough. It's never good enough. Or there's just never enough. Where afterwards, it's the opposite. It's abundance. It's the responsibility. Well, I can do this right here, right now, today, to change that. Or I can leave that. That no longer serves me. So then you enter the world where you see yourself and the world as an abundance, infinite possibility. I get to choose my attitude. I get to choose if I want to be happy or not. No one can take that away from me. And it is my responsibility. The responsibility part is what excites me. The discipline, the techniques.
So your ability to respond to the environment instead of having the environments create your response.
That's right.
Wow, that's great. All right. Sheburra, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you all for listening. If you would like and subscribe, we'd very much appreciate it. And we'll look forward to talking to you later. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheburra.
Thank you, Chris.